Close your eyes for a second and picture tomorrow morning. You wake up and grab your phone out of habit. You see 0 notifications. The lights on your home Wi-Fi router are blinking, but there is no internet. You probably think it is just a temporary issue with your internet provider, but you have no idea that right now it is not just your house. The entire internet across America has gone completely dark. No hacker or cyber attack did this. The culprit behind this massive blackout is the sun burning right above our heads. We all like to think the internet is just some invisible cloud. You might be sitting in a Starbucks in Chicago trying to check your email, thinking the router just broke, and you assume data just magically floats through the air into your device. But the truth is, our modern internet does not live in the air at all. The whole system actually survives on physical cables lying at the very bottom of the ocean. These thousands of miles of submarine cables wrap around the entire planet like a giant web, and right here hides the biggest threat to our future world. Wondering what deep sea cables have to do with the sun and the sky? To understand the connection, we have to look at the science behind it. Inside our submarine cables are optical fibers made of glass, thinner than a human hair. All the data in the world travels through this glass at the speed of light from one continent to another. The funny thing is, magnetic fields do not affect these light signals at all. So where does the actual problem start? The problem is, these light signals slowly lose their strength as they travel thousands of miles underwater. So to keep the signal alive, these cables have an electronic repeater installed every 50 to 150 kilometers. The main job of the repeater is to catch the fading signal, power it back up, and push it forward. And these highly sensitive repeaters need direct electrical power to run. Because of this, a massive copper wire runs right alongside the optical fiber across the entire ocean floor. This is the power feeding line that supplies electricity to those thousands of repeaters. And this giant copper wire is the primary and weakest target for the sun. The sun occasionally violently throws massive magnetic particles from its hot surface into space. In science, they call this a coronal mass ejection, or CME for short. When this solar storm rushes toward Earth, it crashes violently into our own magnetic field. This crash creates a strange and powerful electrical current right across the surface of the Earth. They call it a geomagnetically induced current, or GIC. This GIC finds its own path by flowing through any long conductor it can find on Earth. And what could be a better conductor than this copper power line lying at the bottom of the ocean? Our submarine cable repeaters are usually designed to work perfectly on just 1 amp of current. But when a massive solar storm hits, up to 130 amps of electricity can surge through these cables. When that much raw power hits those tiny repeaters, they literally burn to ash from the extreme heat. So if you think fixing this is pretty easy, no, it is actually not easy. Because these cables are not buried in dirt. They are lying at the pitch black bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. It takes specialized ships several weeks just to fix a single cable in the middle of the ocean. And if hundreds of repeaters blow out all at once, fixing them could take months or even years. Can you even picture what the world would look like then? This is not some made-up science fiction movie plot. This exact thing has actually happened before in human history. In September of 1859, the Earth faced a terrifying solar storm just like this. They call that famous incident the Carrington Event. The internet and modern communication networks did not exist back then. People only used wired telegraphs for fast communication. That solar storm electrified the telegraph wires so much that they literally caught on fire all by themselves in many places. Telegraph operators received massive electric shocks right from their machines. Even after they completely shut off the power supply, people could still send telegraph messages just using the electricity floating in the air. In that old 19th century world, people barely used electricity. But today, our daily lives rely completely on digital infrastructure. Even back in 1989, a much smaller solar storm hit the Canadian province of Quebec. That That storm completely collapsed the massive power grid of the entire province in just a few seconds. Millions of people were trapped in the dark for 9 hours straight in the freezing cold. Now, the biggest question is what happens if a storm as big as the Carrington Event hits us today? The scariest part is the impact of this solar storm will not hit everywhere on Earth equally. New research shows that countries closer to the North and South Poles are at the highest risk. That means countries like the US and the UK will be the very first victims of this disaster. Most of the long submarine cables running from America to Europe sit right in this highly dangerous zone above the 40-degree latitude line. So if a massive solar storm hits, America could easily lose all connection with Europe completely. On the other hand, countries like Singapore or India are closer to the equator, so their risk is slightly lower. Even if America loses connection with Europe, Brazil might actually stay connected to Europe just fine, because their undersea cables cross through a much safer geographic zone near the equator. This terrifying solar activity mostly follows a specific 11-year cycle, but beyond that, there is a much bigger cycle that scientists call the Gleisberg cycle. This massive cycle returns to Earth every 80 to 100 years, and we are heading straight toward that exact danger right now. For the last 2 or 3 decades, the sun has been sitting quietly at the very bottom of this cycle, and by pure coincidence, we built our entire modern internet world exactly during this quiet period. Honestly, our modern internet system has never actually faced a truly terrifying solar storm. Now the sun is slowly waking up again from its long sleep. It is not just the physical cables either. Our cloud data centers are not in a great spot. You would be shocked if you looked at where big tech companies actually put their servers. Most of the massive Facebook data centers sit in places across the northern hemisphere that are highly sensitive to solar storms. If a solar storm really hits, Facebook servers could lose power and connection incredibly fast. Google data centers are actually spread out a bit better across the globe, with servers sitting in safer spots across South America and Asia. They might survive a bit longer, but nearly 57% of the autonomous systems we call the backbone of the internet sit right in that extremely dangerous zone above 40 degrees latitude. That means even if the undersea cables somehow survive, the software and network routing will face total disaster. Food supply chains, banking systems, medical care, and communication will all collapse like a house of cards in seconds. Just one day without the internet in America alone will cause a massive economic loss of nearly $7 billion. And if this blackout lasts for months, nobody knows what will happen to the global economy. Honestly, I cannot tell you how many months or years it would take to get back to our normal lives after a disaster like this. Prices for everything will shoot up rapidly, and normal everyday life will face a massive crisis. The situation with satellite communication will be even worse. Our Earth atmosphere saves us from direct damage, but those satellites floating in space do not have that natural protective shield. The heavily charged particles from the solar storm can completely fry the sensitive electronic circuits on those satellites. Satellites sitting in low Earth orbit like Starlink could lose their orbit from the extreme drag and crash straight down to Earth. That means everything from GPS navigation to satellite internet could just end in a flash. The scariest thing is we spent the last 20 years thinking we are completely safe, and right during this exact time we wrapped our entire planet in an illusion of internet and technology. Our current global internet infrastructure has never actually faced a massive solar storm head-on, so we have no clear proof of how much pressure it can actually handle in reality. Space scientists and researchers are now warning us heavily that the sun is entering its new cycle, and there is a massive mathematical probability that a huge solar storm will happen right in this decade. We do not have a lot of time left to prepare. prepare. When scientists monitor space weather and see a massive CME rushing toward us from the sun, we will have at most 13 to 15 hours before it hits the Earth, because when this massive storm from the sun reaches Earth, we will only have about 13 hours left and nobody will even know exactly what to do. We might be able to save the power grids by temporarily shutting them off, but to this day, we still have absolutely no way to completely protect those thousands of miles of internet cables spread out under the ocean. After 13 hours, your laptop screen might just go black forever. Every digital trace and memory of your life could be completely wiped out by that single cosmic storm. Now, I want you to think about this for a second. If you found out this morning that in exactly 13 hours, all the internet on Earth will shut down for months on end, what exactly would you do to survive in those last few hours?